the Phantom Plant. In 2019, Grayson Industrial Holdings was hailed as a symbol of American innovation. The company claimed to have revitalized domestic manufacturing, opening new facilities across the Midwest and creating more than 10,000 jobs. Its CEO, Richard Vail, became the face of a new industrial renaissance. With his sharp suits and calm confidence, he appeared regularly on financial networks, touting record profits and an ambitious expansion plan funded partly through federal renewable energy tax credits. But what no one realized, not investors, not auditors, not the government, was that many of those plants existed only on paper. The story began in a dusty accounting office in Columbus, Ohio. Forensic auditor Emily Navarro, a quiet but sharp-witted investigator contracted by the State Department of Economic Development, was reviewing a random sample of corporate tax credit claims. Her job was simple: verify that approved companies had met the criteria for job creation and production output. When she reached a file labeled Grayson Industrial Midwest Expansion Project, something caught her eye: the site plan for the Grayson Energy Components plant in Indiana was stamped completed 2020. Yet, the attached photo showed nothing but open fields and an abandoned rail line. Curious, Navarro cross-checked the GPS coordinates listed on the blueprint. The location didn't exist in public land records. The coordinates pointed to a swamp. She verified another site, Grayson Metal Forming Plant, Illinois. The property existed but belonged to a farming co-op, not Grayson Industrial. Yet, the company had received $178 million in federal and state credits for that plant alone. The deeper Navarro dug, the stranger it got. Every factory had financial documents, procurement contracts, staff payrolls, purchase orders, all perfectly formatted. But when she called the suppliers listed, several claimed they'd never done business with Grayson. Others had gone bankrupt years before the transactions were supposedly made. It was as if Grayson had built an entire manufacturing empire in a parallel reality. Navarro compiled her findings into a confidential memo and sent it to her supervisor. Days later, she was told to pause her review pending further administrative direction. But Emily Navarro wasn't the kind to walk away. She'd spent years tracking down white-collar schemes and knew when something didn't smell right. So, she quietly reached out to a former colleague, Special Agent Marcus Reed of the Financial Crimes Division. Together, they began cross-verifying employment records, utility data, and tax filings across state lines. What they found stunned even veteran investigators. Over $2.4 billion in tax credits and subsidies have been approved for non-existent facilities. Grayson Industrial's fraud was intricate, spanning 11 states and more than 60 shell corporations. Each plant was registered under a subsidiary name, with falsified payroll data uploaded to government databases. The company even created fake employee profiles using synthetic identities, combinations of real social security numbers mixed with fabricated names. The illusion was flawless. Whenever regulators conducted site visits, Grayson's local representatives staged elaborate tours, leasing real warehouses for a few days, hiring temporary workers, and setting up rented machinery to simulate production. By the time inspectors left, the equipment would be gone and the warehouse emptied. Grayson's executives called it operational mobility. It was deception perfected through corporate sophistication. But every fraud leaves footprints, even digital ones. Navarro and Reed's forensic team obtained a warrant to access Grayson's internal accounting systems. What they found was chilling. Each fake subsidiary shared the same server metadata, all originating from one location: Suite 1904, Grayson Tower, Chicago. Inside that office, a secret unit called the Strategic Compliance Division handled the creation of every fabricated report. Their software engineers built automation tools that generated realistic production data. shipment numbers, employee rosters, even power consumption levels, all algorithmically randomized to mimic real operations. It was AI-powered fraud. When questioned later, one whistleblower from the IT department described the process bluntly. "We didn't fake numbers. We engineered them to look true." Meanwhile, the company's stock price soared. Investors poured billions into Grayson's expansion projects, unaware that the factories were empty lots and abandoned warehouses. The deception reached Wall Street. Analysts praised Grayson's unprecedented growth efficiency, while Vail was honored at national business summits for revitalizing American industry. Behind closed doors, Vail and his inner circle reaped the rewards, siphoning hundreds of millions into offshore trusts and real estate portfolios. By mid-2021, Navarro and Reed had gathered enough evidence to trigger a federal probe. A task force composed of the FBI, IRS, and SEC launched Operation Smoke Factory. To avoid alerting Grayson, agents began with data, reconstructing email trails, financial transactions, and encrypted communications. The turning point came when they intercepted an internal email between Vail and the CFO, marked strictly confidential. Reclassify site audits. Use virtual prototypes for verification. Numbers must align with narrative. In plain language, keep the lie consistent. The investigation widened. Agents executed search warrants at multiple Grayson offices. What they uncovered was staggering. Hundreds of falsified audit files, pre-recorded factory operation videos used for investor presentations, and internal memos detailing which government officials have been incentivized to approve tax credits without full verification. The scandal broke nationwide when the Washington Herald published leaked excerpts from a forensic report under the headline, "The Factories That Never Were." The fallout was immediate. Grayson stock crashed 78% in a single week. Lawmakers demanded hearings. Investors filed class action lawsuits. During the Senate Oversight Committee inquiry, Navarro testified under oath, describing how she discovered the fraud. "We saw factories that never made anything, yet taxpayers paid for them. It was deception disguised as development." Vail, however, denied wrongdoing. At the hearing, he sat calm and unflinching, claiming Grayson operated under complex regulatory environments. Any irregularities were unintentional administrative oversights, but forensic evidence proved otherwise. The recovered data included a folder titled Optics. Inside were detailed scripts instructing managers how to mislead auditors and media during site visits. Phrases like pre-production phase, prototype operations, and technical downtime were used to justify empty facilities. Even more damning, a spreadsheet tracking over $600 million in political liaison expenses, showing direct payments to consultants linked to state officials who approved the credits. When federal prosecutors charged Vail and 9 top executives with wire fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice, the indictment read like a movie script. 42 counts, spanning a decade of lies. In court, prosecutors described the scheme as the most sophisticated case of industrial illusion ever perpetrated on U.S. soil. The trial drew global attention. Financial journalists called it the Enron of modern manufacturing. During closing arguments, Navarro's testimony was broadcast nationwide. She spoke with quiet conviction. "We chase numbers, but behind every number are real people, taxpayers, workers, families, who believe in what those numbers mean." After a 6-week trial, Vail was convicted on all counts. He received 52 years in federal prison, with asset forfeiture exceeding $1.7 billion. The CFO and compliance director each received 30-year sentences. But justice came at a cost. Thousands of workers who had applied for Grayson's promised jobs never saw them materialize. Rural towns that had granted land and tax incentives were left with empty fields and unfulfilled promises. Local economies collapsed. In Indiana, a billboard once read, "Future site of Grayson Energy Components, now overgrown," the letters fading into rust. Navarro later visited that site during a follow-up interview. Standing in the silence, she said softly, "They sold the illusion of progress." And people believed because they wanted to believe. The investigation reshaped federal oversight of corporate tax credits. Congress passed the Industrial Verification and Transparency Act, mandating on-site forensic validation for all large-scale manufacturing claims before funds could be released. It also made Navarro's team one of the most respected forensic units in the country. But for her, the reward wasn't fame. It was the knowledge that the truth, however buried, however delayed, had been unearthed. Moral and call to action. Fraud doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a suit and a slogan. Every falsified report, every fake promise, steals not just money but hope. Demand proof. Question perfection. Because progress built on lies always collapses under truth.